It could be a history of the application of hydrogen. That it could be a pure chemistry study. But that story is just the behind the story I want to tell. And so my book is the story of how that, in a way, very simple, radical discovery in chemistry, its human impact, what people do with it. In a way, the book is not so much about the balloons, it's about the balloonists. Why did people want to fly? We're all so used to flying, but nobody had flown. That's the point when this begins. No one knows what happens up there. No one knows if you go into a cloud, are you electrocuted? No one knows if the sun will burn you, or will you freeze? No one knows, can you breathe up there? What do birds experience up there? We don't know. And most of all, what does the world look like when you're looking down? The first account of what the new Victorian industrial cities really looked like are given by balloonists, because by overflying a city, you suddenly see it in a different way. You don't only see it, you hear it, and you smell it from a balloon, and it's still the same today if anybody goes up in a hot air balloon. Ballooning takes place here in the American Civil War. And the first accounts of what a modern battlefield is like are given by balloonists, because they're above. They're not in the middle of the battlefield. Famously, if you're in a battle, you only see what's happening immediately around you. You never get the big picture. These observation balloonists saw the big picture for the first time. They looked down like gods. They used the term the angel's eye. And what they saw was pretty terrible. Rather typically of balloons, the kind of story, the myth of it, becomes quite as important as the actual balloon itself. And this happens again and again in balloon history. We found this letter in the archive. There is a string with a basket underneath, but it's not man-carrying. It's got 3 animals in it, because they didn't dare send. They didn't know what would happen to the man. Would they survive at all? So they sent up 3 animals, one of which was a cockerel, the symbol of France, all right? This balloon, and it's described in the letter, floated over the rooftops of Versailles Palace. I'm sure a lot of people visited. That was quite something to see, this enormous, beautiful balloon slowly going. And it came down several hundred meters away, and they opened up the basket, and the animals were fine. As one of the metaphysical questions I was asking is what sort of people do this, and why do they do it? And the short answer is it is an enormous range. Some of them are pure, wonderful, obsessive scientists who are also completely brave in their own way, and we'll tell the story about James Glacier in a minute. And then there are others who are they're kind of almost like exhibitionists in a way. They're showmen, or indeed showwomen. And one of the stories, which comes quite early, is this amazing woman called Sophie Blanchard. She's small, petite, very pretty, with a wonderful open face, and obviously a rather shy and in fact timid person. And one or two things we know about her, that she used to be frightened of the traffic in Paris, all right? We're talking about horses and carts and things, but the way they come thundering down the street and over the cobblestone, the noise used to frighten her. So she appeared to be this timid, anxious character, but the moment she got in the air, she was completely transformed. She was recklessly brave. She was extremely good at ballooning, and it is a technical art. And Jean-Pierre, her ailing husband, died, I think, somewhere on a flight, a very rough flight in Holland, I think. So suddenly Sophie, still in her 20s, is master of her own fate. So she redesigns a smaller, more elegant silk balloon. And she designs the basket. And we've got a picture of it. You cannot believe this basket. It's the smallest thing. It's very pretty. It's kind of in silver finish. I describe it as, when she's in it, it looks as if she's standing in a champagne bucket. It's tiny. And she began to invent, again, can you believe this? a particular new form of entertainment, which was to set off fireworks from a balloon. She so impressed, wait for it, the Emperor Napoleon, that he made her, not a fellow, her, Sophie Blanchard, the official representative of ballooning for the empire. She was the big chief. And in the end, she had too many fireworks, and one summer night in 1819, the fireworks catch fire of the balloon, and it lights from the top. And even then, the balloon's on fire, but she manages to bring it down. But it lands on one of the rooftops in a house near the present Gare Saint-Lazare in Paris. And she falls out and she slides down the roof. And it kills her. And what kills her is not falling from the balloon, falling from a rooftop. She would be an example and a very interesting character study. Someone who was doing something that normally we thought women couldn't possibly do this. They weren't physically courageous in that way. She's still a mystery to me, but it's very striking, and I tried to describe her well enough. There is a story, 1979, two families in East Germany who are, like so many people, passionate to escape to the West, to the free West, to West Germany. Okay, absolutely, it's their lives. And I think they try various ways of driving through. They can't. So in fact, they read a newspaper account of, I think, the founding of the Albuquerque Hot Air Balloon Festival. And they suddenly thought, those Americans, they know a thing or two. So they decided they'd build their own hot air balloon. So not only did they want to get to free Germany, but they wanted to take their families with them. And I think altogether they had 4 children, but one of whom was a babe, a child in arms. Now there we have an interesting moral choice, because it's very courageous and brave of them, and passionately they want to be into free Europe. But should you risk your kid's life? They went up, the balloon caught fire, but they coped with that. They went much higher than they thought they would. There were searchlights. And they come down, unbelievably, still in the dark, a bit rough landing. One person breaks a leg, but otherwise they're fine. But they don't know where they are. Are they still in East Germany or West? And the wonderful end of the story is that they see there's a pylon, electricity pylon, just through the light. And then he saw at the bottom, in small writing, that it was erected by a West German firm. We're free. The uses of balloons, the idea of them as transport, what I call A to B, I gradually realized that a balloon can leave A, but you can never rely on it going to B. The horizontal journey, A to B, is no good, but the vertical journey, going up really high, suddenly becomes, let's discover what the nature of the upper atmosphere. The ordinary balloonists have been maybe 12, 15,000 feet, which is high, but nobody knew what happened after 20,000 feet. So the two of them, James Glacier, and again, he interests me, very different from Sophie Blanchard. This is a Victorian paterfamilias, a father of a large family, big, heavy man, sort of mutton chop, whiskers, very, very solid. The man you can imagine him running the Meteorological Society, but you can't imagine him going in a balloon, and that's what he does. And he builds a special, like Victorian laboratory, which is mounted in the basket of the balloon. We got lovely pictures of it, with this array of the latest Italian equipment, as it happens. Wonderful barometers take air pressure, measure very precisely the temperature, chronometers, all kinds of visual materials. He was taking 12 separate measurements, reading off his barometers, every 1 minute. So imagine, the balloon is going up, and he's just measuring. Wonderful image of the pure Victorian scientists. Up they go. They go through 15,000 feet, 20,000 feet. Some French balloonists have been that high. And then they get to 29,000 feet, which is incidentally the height of Everest, which of course had not been climbed. And then they're in really unknown territory. And what they notice is it's getting colder and colder, seriously cold. Icarus thought when you got nearer the sun, it got hot and your wings fell off. No. We're going into minus regions here. Mr. Glacier is he realizes he can't read the barometers because his sight is going. And actually, this is the beginning, it's oxygen failure. And then your muscular reactions go. And he reaches across very wisely for a bottle of brandy that he's got as part of his. And his hand won't get there. And then he can't hold his head up. It's an amazing description of how his head falls on one side and another. And then he just cants back, and all he can do is lean against the basket. He can't touch his grip, he can't move at all. And his sight's going, and he thinks, I'm dying. We're just going on up, and I'm dying. Coxwell, his pilot, very similar thing is happening to him. But being slightly more used to this, he's still conscious and still physically able to move a bit. And he realizes the one thing they must do is release the gas thing. There's a gas release. And they're still going up. We're way out of comfortable oxygen region here. And then Coxwell discovers that the release line has got tangled in the hoop above the balloon. And he has to climb into the hoop. When he's so cold, his hands are going black. He can't grip anything. His sight is going, but he's a Victorian. And he climbs into the balloon, and he gets the line in his arm like that. He drops back on the balloon. And then the final thing is he can't grip it, so he uses his teeth. He puts his teeth around the rope, and he pulls it, and that pulls the release, all right. And he thought his Mr. Glacier was dead, so he shakes him, and James Glacier begins to stir. He says to him, Mr. Glacier, do try and take some instrument readings. Do try. Oh, please do try. And it's a wonderful... And Glacier comes around, and that's exactly what he does. He leans forward, and he starts, and the account of the flight, then the figures start coming back in. There's 13 minutes that are missed, half of which must have been thinking. So they actually have an absolutely exact record of what they did. They come down, and what they've done, in fact, is they've flown to something like 7 miles. And they've established for the first time that this is what we now would call the troposphere or the biosphere, that there's this very, very thin skin around our planet, our whole planet. This is the skin in which we, animals, everything can live. So suddenly they have a kind of map of the upper atmosphere, and of course it will be developed, and all meteorology and weather forecasting, the idea of barometric pressure fronts, all that comes from this expedition.